Welcome to Eagles Draft Central, presented by Dietz Watson. I'm Ella DiGiovanni, joined by Fran Duffy and Ross Tucker. That's a wrap, guys, on the 2023 NFL Draft. Today, on day 3, the Eagles made 3 selections and then had that big trade with the Lions for running back DeAndre Swift. Initial thoughts as we start to put a bow on the 2023 draft.
Look, the Eagles got better on Thursday night. They got better on Friday night, and they certainly got better here on Saturday. Just an outstanding weekend. If you were an Eagles fan, you could not have asked for more than what has happened over the last 3 days.
And honestly, I think you can make a pretty strong argument that the Eagles got the 2 best players today. I mean, when we did the post-draft show Thursday night, I wanted the Eagles to take Kelee Ringo on Friday night. And then they trade for DeAndre Swift, who we know what he can do in the NFL. So the Eagles arguably got the 2 best players that are on teams now today.
Let's start with Kelee Ringo. So before Saturday began, the Eagles made a trade. They traded up to go get him at 105, cornerback out of Georgia. Of course, we can start all the jokes about how much the Eagles now love Georgia guys. But what are our initial thoughts about adding Kelee Ringo to this group?
Look, anytime you can add a corner who is 6'2", 215 pounds, and runs 4.3, who's 21 years old, has been a 2-year starter for the best defense in the history of college football, arguably, and by the way, just a redshirt sophomore, like that is a great bet to take on the 3rd day of the draft. Kelee Ringo was a guy that you go back to even December, January, he was in the top 10, top 15 of mock drafts. Now, that was probably a little bit too rich, right? The media a little bit slow to catch up to the league from that standpoint, but Ringo is a hell of a talent. The Eagles got a steal here early in day 3.
Well, he's 20 years old. And Fran, what do you and I always say? If they trade up like this, and in this instance, they actually traded a 3rd-round pick next year, that tells you something. They really wanted him because they don't trade future picks all that often. So the fact that the Eagles looked at this and said, you know what? Hopefully our 3rd-round pick next year is way late in the 3rd round anyway. We might as well get a guy that we love right now, very high in the 4th round. I wouldn't have been surprised if he was in strong consideration for 65 and 66 last night.
No doubt.
Well, Ross mentioned the pitch he made on Thursday night for the Eagles to go get Kelee Ringo on Friday. I think we have a little look to see what Ross said the other night.
I'm going to go with Georgia cornerback Kelee Ringo. He's 6'2", almost 200 pounds, ran a 4.3 40, had a huge pick 6 in the national championship game against Alabama. And by the way, did I mention he's from Georgia and plays defense for Georgia, the Bulldogs, the team that Eagles draft every time?
That's it.
You know, okay, so those of you that are loyal and watch us all the time, last year I said, before Thursday night in the preview show, I said Jalen Carter. Last year I said Jordan Davis. The year before that, I said Landon Dickerson. So at this point, do we know if it's really Howie Roseman making the picks, or is it me making the picks here on our digital shows?
You're Rostradamus. Just like, just gonna get you like a hat, like put a badge on you. Just let him into the building once a year to make the picks.
Keep patting yourself on the back over there, Ross. Just
you know what? If this keeps up, they're not going to let me say who I think anymore. Other teams are going to start watching the Eagles show on PhiladelphiaEagles.com or the YouTube being like, who does Ross say they're going to take? Because that's who they're going to go for.
Oh, my goodness. Well, one more question about Kelee Ringo before we move forward here. You think about the cornerbacks that are here in Philadelphia. How can Kelee Ringo benefit from being in a room with James Bradberry and Darius Slay, arguably the best cornerback duo in the National Football League?
Yeah, and I think when you look at a physical skill set standpoint, he's probably most similar to Bradberry, right? Because he's got that longer, more broad frame. But anytime you can get into a room with Slay and Bradberry, I mean, Slay has done a great job over the course of his career at mentoring young corners. It's something he takes a lot of pride in. He works with young corners and receivers every single spring and summer. And so he's going to want to get his hands on Ringo and really kind of show him the ropes. It's going to be fun to watch these guys work.
Well, and what's interesting about it, Fran, is, you know, on the draft coverage on NFL Network, they said, well, there were some issues with him, maybe work ethic. Again, that's the value of bringing him here. He gets to learn from the 2 veterans we just talked about, but he also has 3 teammates from the last couple of years that he can learn from as well, with Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter and Nakobe. 4 teammates from the last couple of years. So Again, this is the value of the Eagles trusting their scouts and knowing we have other teammates around him. Those guys will all be buddies. They'll all be hanging out together, and they'll all be on the same routine. Because you really need that as an NFL player to have a routine and stick with it.
Well, everyone was loving it, how much the Eagles were going after Georgia guys. Taking on social media today, spreading the love about the Eagles going after the Georgia Bulldogs. Check it out. I love it. I love it. It's crazy. In 2 drafts, I think that Kobe Dean put that one out. Another one. Big Play Slays, loving it. Philly Dogs. And the Eagles legit out of clever things to say about Georgia. That's a good one. What
That's
is there
clever.
left to say?
That's clever.
Yeah, past 2 years. They've now taken Georgia Bulldogs, and a ton of them.
There are worse strategies than to say, like, hey, you know what? This defense is one of the best in college football history. Let's just bring as many of those guys to Philly as possible.
Well, and these guys are all like 5-star recruits. It's been the best defense. They're extremely talented, and they got value in pretty much all of them, especially this year. I mean, there's not a single mock draft you'll be able to find, go ahead and look for it, where Jalen Carter was still there at 9, where Nolan Smith was still there at 30, and where Kelee Ringo was in their 4th round.
Altogether.
Not
yeah,
one.
Right.
Not one of them. Try to find any mock draft, you won't get it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on. The big trade that was made earlier today, the Eagles grabbing running back DeAndre Swift from the Lions, and they sent a 5th-round pick, I believe. Is that correct? 5th-round pick to the Lions?
Sounds right.
4th round,
4th
5th
round pick in
2025.
2025.
I have so many notes in front
4th
of
round
me.
pick in 2025.
Yep, that's exactly what happened to get more of a veteran running back who's still on a rookie deal. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry last season. So you got a guy who's coming in here with experience, who can lead a group that is now without Miles Sanders, and he's running behind one of the best offensive lines in the league.
Yeah, this guy's electric. He's been one of the more fun running backs to watch in football over the last few years, and he excels in space. Now, whether that's run game or pass game, a lot of the best highlights you see with DeAndre Swift are when you can get him out into the open field and let him work. Screen game, pass game, perimeter runs, all the different draws and sweeps, just trying to get him out into the open field. He's got a knack for finding the end zone from that area, Russ.
Well, and a couple thoughts, right? Think about how much space he's going to have in this Eagles offense with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Goddard and what Jalen Hurts brings to the table and the offensive line. The other thing is, I've known this young man since he was in 9th grade. And when he was in 9th grade, I was broadcasting U.S. Army Bowl. He came with his dad and sat in the stands and watched every practice. I mean, he has been planning for all of these moments his whole life. So cool that he gets to come back to Philadelphia where he grew up, and he's in a contract year, so he will be heavily incentivized to put up big numbers for the Birds this year.
Trying to think about where he fits into this puzzle here is interesting because, like you mentioned, he can be very creative. Over 1,000 receiving yards is in his career, so he's used on the ground and in the passing game. And when you think about what the Eagles started to do with Kenny Gainwell in the postseason, it's going to be interesting to see how they use all of these pieces in this year's offense.
Yeah, you factor in the addition of Rashad Penny, who has been an explosive slasher, a guy that you can use in a lot of different ways downhill. I love watching Rashad Penny play. You factor him in with Swift and his dynamic qualities. Kenny Gainwell, kind of a mix of both, because he's done it as both a runner and as a pass catcher. He led the Eagles in rushing every single game in the postseason. So I'm excited to see these guys all get to work. If they're all healthy, it should be one of the better, deeper backfields in the league.
Yeah, and Fran, I'm a big Miles Sanders fan, and Miles did a great job here. Miles Sanders is making $6.5 million a year. DeAndre Swift's making $1.77 million. I'm not sure there's a huge difference between those two. In fact, when you watch them, they actually remind me of each other a little bit. If anything, I think there are plays where it feels like DeAndre is a little bit more explosive. So once again, you see the Eagles finding a way to save a bunch of money and bring in a player who I think in large part replaces the guy they lost.
Well, after the big trade went down just earlier today, Ross and Fran hit the tape again. So here's a little breakdown of DeAndre Swift.
All right, let's take a look at the Eagles' newest running back in DeAndre Swift. He's been in the NFL now for a few years, Ross. Out of Georgia, originally from Philadelphia, one of the best space backs in the NFL.
Well, he is, and he has been all the way going back to St. Joe's Prep. I called some of his high school state championship games. I thought the Lions did a really good job at times last year getting him out in space where he can do some serious damage.
Yeah, what was it, 5.5 yards a carry last year in 2022, and a lot of it on some of these perimeter runs. You see him here on this pin pull sweep.
It's a toss crack here, get him on the outside, and just watch his agility. Watch this cut right here. I mean, that is a nasty cut on Jaquan Brisker, the safety for the Bears, a very good player. But those are the type of things Swift does very naturally once he gets the ball in the open field.
Yeah, it's all about trying to get him in space, whether it's those perimeter plays or if you can get him up to the second and third level. And that's something the Eagles have done really, really well, whether it's draws, traps, whams, anything to get him past that first level, that defensive line, and get him up to the second level against linebackers. That's what you see here on this draw play.
Well, yeah, and again, this is all about getting him some room to run. And once he does, he's so good with his vision and his stop-start. I mean, look at some of these moves he has to make guys miss. That's when he really does his most damage, is when he's able to get a guy one-on-one and just break tackles. Sometimes they don't even lay a hand on him. We've already seen that a couple times.
Yeah, and what I love, too, is just the value he brings in the pass game. And you look at Nick Sirianni, this offense, they're going to try and find creative ways to get him the football. Certainly the screen game, a big part of that. That's what we see here.
Well, and think about the screen game for the Eagles. I mean, it has been awesome. We all see all the videos of Jason Kelsey and the guys out in front, and that's exactly what Swift does here. He's got a couple good blocks out there. Watch him set the blocks up. He sets the block up from Ragnow, the center. Now the guard will get one, and then he just pops out right in between those guys. You know, he does such a good job of almost hiding behind the blockers, and the Bears defenders weren't really quite sure how to get him. That is really well done.
How often do we see a running back catch a ball on a screen? He's immediately trying to get out of dodge. That patience there, that's an offensive lineman's best friend.
Absolutely. You know, it's up to the running back to make the lineman look good on screen plays.
And then we see him in isolation against linebackers. And again, that's one of the things that you love about a player like DeAndre Swift, all the different things you can do with him from a schematic standpoint. Here, he's just running this Texas route out of the backfield, makes a great adjustment after a great route.
Yeah, well, watch the catch here, too. I mean, it's a good route, but this ball is thrown behind him. That is not easy. He's a running back going on an angle towards the middle of the field to be able to catch that off his back hip like that. He's fired up, and he should be. Watch right there. That is not easy to do with all your momentum going the other way, to catch it and stay on his feet. He almost scored.
Yeah, expecting a potential hit there from a linebacker or a safety. And again, trying to find those matchups. That's something that Detroit did an excellent job with him last year. Here, they're just running everybody vertically. They're completely clearing out and creating a one-on-one scenario here with the running back Swift against the linebacker there in the middle of the field.
And Fran, that's maybe the best matchup in football, right?
I mean, look at this.
A good pass-catching running back against a linebacker, he probably won't even touch him. Yeah, he doesn't even get a hand on him because that's how good DeAndre Swift is in space. And to have a guy like Swift along with Gainwell, so now the Eagles have two running backs that are really good out of the backfield catching passes.
Yeah, it's outstanding. And again, you can move him around the formation as well. That can give the quarterback a lot of information pre-snap. We talked so much about those empty sets last year in the Eagles offense with Jalen Hurts, giving him information before the snap. Here, Jared Goff, he sees that you've got DeAndre Swift in empty. You've got a cornerback lined up over him. That tells you immediately, hey, this is zone coverage. So watch, Swift's going to be motioned inside, and he's going to run a route just settling into a soft spot in zone coverage. You have an idea, hey, it's going to be zone, it's going to be zone. Now, DeAndre, go find the soft spot, and the Lions are able to pick up a first down.
Yeah, it's really a valuable weapon to be able to have a guy like that just racking up the third down conversions right there, right? Like able to get those passes underneath anytime they need it. This was a huge game. This is the last game of the year.
Yeah.
And the Lions won, knocked the Packers out of the playoffs in part because of some of the plays that Swift was able to make.
Yeah, so you see the big play potential in the run game. You see the big play potential in the pass game. DeAndre Swift, he's going to be a fun piece in this Eagles offense.
Eagles Draft Central, presented by Dietz Watson, proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. Want to give one more shout out to all of our people in the control room, as you can see them right now. They're the brains, they're all the hard work behind this show all these 3 days, and we are so grateful for them. There's Melissa, she's directing away. She doesn't have time for my shout out.
We would literally not be on the air for you guys if it weren't for everybody behind the scenes, including right here in studio behind the camera.
They're the best. All right, moving on. Tanner McKee, quarterback. The Eagles selected in selection number 188 from Stanford. Now, for people who don't entirely understand the way the NFL draft process works, they think, we have Jalen Hurts. Why do we need another quarterback? What's the importance of going and getting a quarterback late in the draft?
Well, I mean, Jalen Hurts is a great example, right? You always want to be able to add to the position and find talent, because even if he doesn't play here, if Tanner McKee can grow into a quality backup or a low-end starter, which, by the way, there are a lot of people that feel he's got that potential. He operates a pocket really well. He's a big, strong-armed kid. Was not helped by the supporting cast at Stanford over these last couple of years. The offensive line, the quality there up front really dropped over these last couple of years, so he was under duress often. They could not get a run game going, but this is a guy that knows how to operate a pocket, comes from a pro-style system there with the Cardinal. I always enjoyed, even over the last 2 years, watching him play. I'm excited to see what he looks like here in Philly.
The Eagles, organizationally, are always going to add to the quarterback room.
Yep.
Always. I mean, remember last year, after final cuts, they brought in Ian Book. Now Ian Book and Tanner McKee will compete to be that third quarterback behind Marcus Mariota, because the Eagles are always hoping that they can develop young quarterbacks, hit on them. Maybe they play wonderfully in the preseason, and at some point you trade them. Or maybe, to your point, Fran, they just become a long-term backup. Look, there were people during the season that were talking about him as a second or third round pick because of how talented he was. Remember, he's coming off through Davis Mills. He was one of the top recruits in the country. Alabama wanted him. Texas wanted him. His parents' alma mater, BYU, wanted him. He did the mission because he's only a redshirt sophomore. So there's a lot of upside there because he only played 2 seasons.
Yep.
Whenever I think about a quarterback room in the NFL, I picture it as a meeting of the minds. It's a very small room compared to other units. And it is a matter of kind of drawing on all of the experience of the people in the room. He's a 2-year starter. He's a team captain. We know how much the Eagles, look for leadership qualities when drafting here in Philadelphia. So just bringing in more knowledge into the room can never hurt.
No doubt. I mean, he comes from a system, again, that is pro-style in terms of their terminology. So everything that he's going to be asked to do in the structure of the Eagles offense, it's not going to be foreign to him. But now he's just going to have to go out and compete. Like Ross said, go out, compete with Marcus Mariota, compete with Ian Book, and see who the best man wins here at the end of the summer.
Yeah, they're not going to just give Ian Book the third quarterback job. He was there all year last year, and that's great, and he should be ahead of Tanner McKee. But they want to make sure that they are pushing for that spot. You never know, right? Look, Jalen Hurts has missed a game or two the last couple years, which would mean Mariota, you would assume, is starting. But then whoever the third quarterback is, they're the backup for a couple games. They're a play away from being in the game for a couple games, and those might be vital games. The third quarterback spot is not just a throwaway spot, and the Eagles never treat it as such.
Yeah, San Francisco. How important the third quarterback is.
Nice.
Shots fired. All right. Then the Eagles rounded out the weekend drafting, I know you're excited about this one, defensive tackle Moro Ojomo from Texas. 5-year guy, 50 career games, 30 starts. What are we seeing from him?
Well, Ella, you and I were at the scouting combine, and we're down the field. It was the first night, defensive line working at Indianapolis, and we're sitting there watching. I'm like, who is this guy? And he just looks the part. Let me just paint a picture of Moro Ojomo. He had one of the best positional workouts. He tested pretty well at the combine. This kid, he grew up, he was born in Nigeria, moves to California when he's 7 years old, moves to Texas when he's in 7th grade, enrolls at Texas when he is 16 years old, plays 5 years at University of Texas. So he enters the NFL as a redshirt senior, but he's only 21 years old, okay? He's got 34.5-inch arms. He looks the part. You look at some of these close shots here, you could see how well put together this kid is, and the production was just never there. He never put up huge sack production, huge TFL production, but when you look at some of the metrics, you look at pass rush win rate, you look at pressure percentage, you look at his ability to win on third down, how effective he was against the run, what percentage of plays did he positively impact against the run, he was really high in a lot of these metrics. So you're betting on a kid who looks the part, who moves extremely well, who's really young. There's a lot of reasons to take this swing here in the 7th round. Look at this kid, Ross.
I mean, look at that guy. He's got traps on top of his traps. He's got delts on top of his delts, and he's only 21 years old still. And I just want to peel back the curtain a little bit, just so everybody knows. We were already sitting here when the Eagles made this pick. You would have thought from Fran's reaction that we traded for A.J. Brown again. I mean, he was like, yes, we got him. I was like, we got who? Moro Ojomo. Like, he was that excited that the Eagles got Moro Ojomo. So none of this is like fake. Fran is legitimately over the moon that the Eagles got this guy or picked 249 in the 7th round.
Ross, if they took him last night, I would have easily been able to sell it. Very easily. Like any team that took a shot on him in the 3rd round, 4th round, I would have said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because this kid's got outstanding tools. He just has not been able to put it all together, but it's a very easy profile to bet on.
And think about when he goes into this defensive line room here in Philadelphia, he has plenty of guys that he can learn from. He's the epitome of taking a talent here in Philly, and they're going to develop him so that he can be an impact player on this team.
What did Howie Roseman just say last night? Talking about day 3, he said, you're going to try and find guys with upside. You take that home run swing. Moro Ojomo, he encapsulates exactly that.
Well, and the last thing I would say about it is they could have picked any of these other guys that are available. I mean, I know it's obvious, but there's a lot of guys they're going to go after as undrafted free agents. They're talking on the phones as we speak, I'm sure. They picked him. Out of all these other guys that are on everybody's boards as best available, they thought this guy, Moro Ojomo, had the most upside, the best chance to maybe be a lottery ticket that they can cash in.
If he goes undrafted, his phone, he's got 30 teams calling him trying to get him in as an undrafted free
Absolutely.
agent. You don't have to fight that battle now.
Love it. Well, welcome to Philadelphia instead, huh?
That's it.
All right, let's have some fun. We are back for some true or false. Now, if you tuned in last night, it got a little chippy, so we're back for more, because why not?
True.
Okay?
It was a little chippy.
True. All right. So now I have questions about Kelee Ringo and DeAndre Swift. True or false, okay? DeAndre Swift's favorite cheesesteak is Geno's. Philly guy, so he knows. True or false? His favorite cheesesteak is Geno's.
I'm going to say false.
It is false.
Yeah.
D'Alessandro's.
Oh, after your own heart.
Yeah.
Yep.
2 minutes from where I grew up. And Ishkabibbles
Yeah. Okay.
are his favorite.
Good choices. Good
All right.
choices.
Which, if you knew he was a Philly kid, you should know. It's
He's not.
No,
He's
gonna
not
be Geno's.
Geno's.
Okay.
You know, it's a local spot.
Right.
All right, next question. DeAndre Swift's favorite sport outside of football is pickleball. True or false?
I'm going to say false.
False. Yeah.
False.
Okay.
It's bowling.
Oh, interesting.
Are you're just copying
No,
me
I was
again.
trying to go the same
Why
way.
don't you go first once? Why
Here
don't
we
you
go
go
again.
first? Stop
Here
looking
we go.
over here.
I'll count to 3 and then.
Okay.
Okay, does that work for
Yes.
both of you?
Works for me.
Okay, great. Next question. DeAndre Swift used to play football with our social media coordinator, Jamal. Jamal, who's in the office.
I'm
Used to
going
play
first?
football with
No, we both go.
Ready?
Alright.
1, 2, 3. True. That is true. So we're tied.
I love Jamal.
I told you.
Jamal's my guy. That's awesome. I think I've talked to Jamal about that.
Yeah.
How did you know that?
He works 10 feet away from me. I knew that. I thought I had the head up on that one.
Next question. Kelee Ringo was Superman for Halloween every year as a kid. True or false? Ready?
Every year, that's rough.
Every year as a kid. 1, 2, 3. False.
Oh.
He was actually Spider-Man every
Okay.
year as a
No.
kid.
Oh, my logic was there's no way every year he'd be the same person.
Okay.
So,
It's okay. It's a win. It's a
All
win.
right. Yep.
you won. We have a winner.
That's it?
Yeah.
One question?
Yeah.
Let the visiting team win. That's all right.
Yes.
Good work. Good work. I love it. I love it. All right, so looking back on how this weekend went, it's easy to crown the Eagles as the winners of this draft. But when you dig into what they actually did, from going up and getting Jalen Carter to picking Moro Ojomo in the 7th round, how do you evaluate kind of their process and understanding the needs of this team?
Well, I think you try to take advantage of every opportunity that is thrown your way, right? So the Eagles, you're picking at 10 overall coming into the weekend. You're not planning on picking this high ever again, right? Or in the next few years, right? So your hope is let's come away from this draft with one of the blue chip talents. They did that, right? Then you continue to bolster the trenches. What do they do with their next 2 picks? You get Nolan Smith, you get Tyler Steen, you fill in a need with safety Sidney Brown, a player that universally was loved upstairs by the front office. Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni talked about he was one of the red star players, a guy that their scouting staff said, you know, he was one of the few that they say, you know what, we just feel good about this guy sticking in the NFL. You add another blue chip talent in Kelee Ringo. You get Tanner McKee to bolster the back end of the quarterback room. And then again, you're always taking those high value swings there with a guy like Moro Ojomo at the end. You're just checking a lot of boxes when you look at this group. And you add in DeAndre Swift on top of that.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, Fran. You know, to me, with as good as the Eagles were last year, as good as their roster is, it's kind of remarkable that they acquired 5 guys this weekend that are going to play for them this year. They're going to have roles. I mean, Jalen Carter, I'd be surprised if he's not in the defensive tackle rotation. Nolan Smith, I'd be surprised if he's not coming off the edge. I think Tyler Steen basically replaces Andre Dillard, maybe even Sayamalo at right guard, but becomes that guard tackle depth guy that'll probably get some playing time this year. Sidney Brown's going to be in the mix to start at safety. And then DeAndre Swift is absolutely going to get playing time for the Eagles this year. We'll see how much. And then Kelee Ringo, we'll see what happens with health of guys like Bradbury and Slay. But to get 5 guys this weekend that are legitimately going to help a Super Bowl team is really impressive. Really hard to do because a lot of times you're drafting late and you already have a loaded roster, so you don't really have a chance to get that many guys that'll contribute.
They drafted as if they weren't just in the Super Bowl 70 so days ago, which is pretty impressive that they were able to do that.
Yeah, and again, you get into just looking at today, outside of Swift, the 2 of the 3 picks they made were highly athletic 21-year-olds with traits, right? You look at Ojomo and you look at Kelee Ringo. You're just always trying to bet on that in terms of the upside you're going to get back with these day 3 selections.
You already said 70 whatever days since the Super Bowl. I'm already excited for the preseason games. Yep. I'm already excited to go with Fran and break down more videos of Kelee Ringo and Jalen Carter and all these guys for the preseason games because it's probably about 70 days until the preseason games will be here.
It's coming fast. Well, we know you're also probably excited for the preseason games for press box food.
Oh, no. What did you do?
Because you've been eating your way through the NovaCare complex this weekend. And I know we put you on blast last night, but we're not done yet. This was a text today.
You didn't learn. 9:20?
That was this morning.
That was my second text maybe.
So we showed all of Ross's texts from the weekend asking about meal times, when he's going to eat, what's available to him, and then that was this morning.
Yeah, that's why I did the smiley face emoji because I knew that it might be on the show again.
Just in case.
But I still wanted to know.
You made it for breakfast. You did make it for breakfast.
No, my point is, I knew that I might be put on blast, but it was worth it to me to be able to structure my meals. I just had filet and 2 more salmon. This place is unbelievable. And we gave them a shout out yesterday. They get another shout out. It is unreal that you guys get to be here every day.
What did you have today?
Oh gosh, a lot. So when I first got here, I had a delicious breakfast. Then at lunch, Birria tacos, Birria. Never heard of them. Delicious, amazing. Then for dinner, I just had 2 pieces of salmon and a filet. I had the salmon on a bed of lettuce because I'm crazy healthy like that. It was awesome, absolutely awesome.
Can I bring us back to last year in the draft? We were down in the bubble for our old set, and Ross came down with a bag of the espresso bean, the chocolate-covered espresso beans, and they were gone in 10 seconds. You're like, guys, are you supposed to eat them that fast? My heart is racing right now.
Espresso?
Espresso.
They were good. It was like coffee and chocolate.
He was doing laps.
But I never actually drink coffee. I've never had a sip in my life, so I didn't really know what the reaction would be.
All right, we're getting off the rails now.
Yes.
So we're going to wrap it up here from the NovaCare complex. What a weekend for the Philadelphia Eagles for the 2023 NFL Draft. Thank you so much for sticking with us through each day, and we're going to toss it right to a press conference. We'll be hearing from Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni in just a bit. Thanks so much, and go Birds.